to attend. Next slide. Also, just a reminder to folks that all MBTA activities are free from discrimination. If you have any questions, you can contact the MBTA Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. And next slide. I ask that you please hold all questions and comments until the end of the presentation. And before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few meeting controls for folks who are unfamiliar with Zoom. And next slide. We are offering Spanish and Haitian Creole interpretation this evening. You'll notice a global icon. Sorry, I'm just having a little technical difficulties with this. Global icon at the bottom of your screen. Please select English in the drop-down menu if you wish to remain in the English room. And the same applies to the other 3 language options. You'll be able to see the presentation, but only hear the audio in the language that you select. We have an ASL interpreter. If you would like to view the ASL interpreter at all times, just keep your settings in gallery mode. It should be the default setting, but you can change this by clicking the button that says gallery mode in the top right of your screen. Gallery mode shows all presenters on the screen together, and this ensures that you can see the interpreter as well as the speaker. If a presenter is sharing slides, this view will change. Your screen will primarily display the slides with the presenters and the interpreter's video moving to be small in the top right corner. Often the default setting will only show the speaker, not the ASL interpreter. To change this, you can pin the interpreter's video. They have co-host capability, so they should also be able to pin themselves. But to do this yourself, click the ellipses in the top right corner of the interpreter's video, and then select pin video. And then you would need to repeat this process if we switch interpreters. And next slide, please. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to use the chat function. We'll attempt to troubleshoot your problem and then assist you. Next slide. We also have closed captions for this meeting. To see the captions, please press the closed caption button to get them started. And thank you. And I will now turn it over to MBTA Acting Chief Engineer, Joe Pavo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Pavo. I'm the Acting Chief Engineer for the MBTA. In a few moments, you're going to hear a presentation from MBTA Project Manager AJ Tanner from my team, as well as the Design Team Project Manager Phil Santos, who is with HNTB as the Direct Designer of Record. Before we start the presentation, I wanted to first thank everyone for taking time out of the evening to join us for another public engagement event on this very important project. This project will provide accessible, reliable, and modern service on the Mattapan Line, and I'd like to encourage your participation and input so that you can have a voice in delivering the best future version of the Mattapan high-speed line. I also want to introduce Senior Project Manager Gwen Dunleavy of the Capital Transformation Team, who will be supporting AJ during the initial design phase and then taking the lead through the final design and construction phases of the project. Least but not last, I'd like to introduce Adam Kamoon from our Legislative Affairs Office. I'm now going to turn it over to Adam to recognize any elected officials in attendance tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Again, my name is Adam Kamoon. I work in Legislative and External Affairs for the General Manager's Office. I just want to thank representatives who are joining us from the following offices: Senator Walter Timothy's office, Senator Nick Collins, Representative William Driscoll, Representative Brandy Fluker-Oakley, and Representative Russell Holmes, as well as municipal officials from both Boston and Milton. Thank you for participating, and we'll be glad to call on you folks at the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. My name is AJ Tanner. I'm the MBTA project manager for the Mattapan Transformation Program. As many of you know, the purpose of the Mattapan Transformation Program is to implement state of good repair, accessibility, station, and safety improvements to all infrastructure on the Mattapan line to meet current service needs with the existing PCC vehicles and future needs with the light rail Type 9 vehicles. Tonight, I'm happy to share the progress we've made to move this program forward, including details and insight into how we are approaching developing concepts for station modernization and improvement. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions at the end of this presentation. Understanding the importance of service reliability today, I wanted to start with a brief update on the trolley refurbishment project. I'm very pleased to say that the second trolley that is being refurbished through this project will be back in service within the next 30 days. The third trolley is currently undergoing a de-leading and abatement process. The results of this process will dictate the timeline for return, but we expect that this trolley should be back in service as early as next summer. The fourth trolley has been pulled from service and is awaiting transfer to the de-leading facility. All other trolleys remain on the line at this time. The MBTA is investing $12.2 million to this effort to preserve and more reliably operate existing PCC cars and revenue service in the near future until the transformation is complete and the Type 9 light rail vehicles are introduced as the next generation fleet for the Mattapan line. And now to move on to the larger transformation program, I'll give a brief recap of our overall timeline and funding for this phase of the program, which is the 15% design phase. To start, we expect to complete the 15% design phase by the end of 2023, at which point the Office of the Chief Engineer, which is my office, will transition the project to the Capital Transformation Team, led by Guinevere Dunlevy, to complete the design and take it through construction. At this time, we've begun developing concept designs for each station and evaluating alternative station configurations. In other words, we're creating multiple options for what the stations in the corridor might look like in the future to ensure it meets the needs of the riders and the riders impacted communities and MBTA operations. We have already committed to holding public meetings every 6 months, so our next public meeting will be sometime in April of 2023. At that time, we expect to have more detailed conceptual designs for you to see. Between now and then, I highly encourage you to submit any feedback regarding how the station should look or operate, or specific features that you would like to see integrated into the station design. We have received many comments already and are actively incorporating these comments into our concept designs. Today, you will see a variety of potential station elements that we are considering for each station and would love to hear your feedback on them. As I mentioned at our last public meeting, the state has granted us over $12.2 million committed to the trolley refurbishment program, along with another $114.5 million in initial funding dedicated to the Mattapan Transformation Program. This is enough to get us through the complete program design and beyond, so we can continue to move forward towards the transformation finish line as quickly as possible. Since we held our last public meeting, the project team has been hard at work and has made great progress in line with MBTA expectations. We are out in the field reviewing the current condition of the line and gathering information required for our design work. We've surveyed wetlands and used ground penetrating radar so we can figure out what is below the ground. We are also continuing to work on things such as assessing bridges and other existing structures, the systems that power the vehicles, as well as the resiliency of the corridor to flooding. All these pieces feed into the creation and evaluation of conceptual station design options that you'll hear more about later in this presentation. Before moving into the broader design, station design work, I did want to touch briefly on an issue of immense importance to the communities near Milton Station. Unfortunately, the stairway from Adams Street to the Milton Station platform has been closed down and unfortunately cannot be repaired and reopened at this time, as it would require immediate and extensive repairs to make the station fully accessible. This would include installing an elevator and raising the platform, elements that will come in time under this Mattapan Transformation Program. Our immediate planned work includes securing a demolition contractor to demolish and remove the stairs. We expect to complete the procurement process for a demolition contractor this winter, and we will schedule this work to minimize negative impacts to riders and neighbors, and intend to over-communicate the schedule and operational impacts of this work once they are determined. At this time, I'll turn it over to Phil Santos to talk about our progress and approach to designing the future Mattapan high-speed line stations, including here at Milton.
Thanks, AJ. We want to take a little time to show you how we are incorporating your feedback into our design process. We want to make sure the spaces you will be using will be safe, accessible, and comfortable. The station elements you see here and on the next few slides will be included into the improved and modernized Mattapan Line stations and are similar to what can be found in some of the newly constructed stations along the Green Line. For example, like at Brookline Hills Station shown on screen, you see an emergency call box, improved lighting at the station, security cameras, canopies and windscreens, audio and visual messaging equipment. All of these improvements are geared toward providing a safer, more accessible and comfortable and easy to navigate Mattapan Line. Next slide. The customer assistance areas are a new feature of the MBTA stations and provide a safe space for people to request and wait for assistance to arrive. Each of these areas include a call box connecting you directly to someone that will support you, a 20% increase in overhead lighting for more safety and visibility, a blue indication light to help MBTA staff quickly locate those in need of assistance, large type braille signage and instructions that identify the area and provide customer assistance area and station information in an accessible format, directional tactile on each side of the customer assistance area to allow for cane detection, and a bench with back support with space to the side for wheelchairs. These areas are typically located near the center of train platforms and have white tactile surface strips running perpendicular from the platform wall. Next slide. Improvements to track crossings and safe and accessible paths of travel between platforms and surrounding neighborhoods will also be a point of emphasis in our design. All stations will have well-marked track and street crossings flush with the top of rail in order to help increase safety and reduce tripping hazards. We are working with local municipalities to improve access to the stations, and we're also committed to improving the Ponce Trail connections. The crossings on screen are some recent examples at other MBTA locations that may be incorporated throughout the Mattapan Line. Go ahead, next slide, please. This diagram here gives you another perspective on how we bring the various station elements together. We think about how riders will board the future Type 9 train. We are providing fully accessible level boarding at each station, which means elevating the existing platforms to be 14 inches higher than they are today. Once on the new vehicles, customers will need to be able to clearly see station signage as they travel down the corridor. We think about how to make sure the new station elements are effective and useful from various perspectives. The dash lines here begin at eye level of each rider and passes through either the top or bottom of the vehicle window. The result is the expected maximum vision span for each rider. Simple details like station sign elevations can have major impacts to the passenger experience. Next slide, please. As you saw in the program timeline, we are in the early phase of the conceptual design development, evaluation, and selection process. Our goal is to ensure we are making equitable, comprehensive improvements that meet the needs of the riders, the MBTA, and the local communities. To achieve this goal, we've created a framework to evaluate trade-offs and guide decisions that will lead us to building a safe, accessible, and reliable service. You may very well recognize the elements within this framework because they reflect what we heard from you during past public meetings. It boils down to 6 main categories. You can see them in the blue circles on this slide. They are safety, which includes improvements to lighting and visibility for passengers and operators, and minimizing rail, vehicle, car, pedestrian, and bicycle conflicts. Passenger experience Included under passenger experience is providing a fully accessible service, improving connections to the local communities, including other transit modes or the Neponset Trail, and increasing the quantity and quality of bicycle parking provided. Environmental, cultural, and historic resources. Under this category, we focus on minimizing impacts to sensitive areas and natural environments and incorporating sustainability and resiliency into our design. For economic development benefits, this category accounts for the impacts to private or community property or to any possible future transit-oriented development. Under the constructability bubble, we measure our ability to make improvements while maintaining service through construction. Here we look at things like impacts to surrounding businesses, residences, and traffic. We know how important this service is for many of our riders, and we will continue to design to minimize service disruptions. We will do our best to communicate early around any potential service impacts construction may have. For capital and operating costs, this is simply the construction costs and the cost to maintain the line in the future. We are working with the MBTA to ensure equitable and cost-effective use of public resources to make the necessary improvements to the Mattapan high-speed line. So, how will we use this framework in our process? Using Milton Station, I'll demonstrate how different station layouts stack up when evaluated by these categories. Next slide, please. Milton Station currently has separate inbound and outbound platforms on either side of the track. One alternative could lead us to ask, what are the impacts of consolidating these platforms into a simpler configuration utilizing a center island platform, as depicted on the image to the right? The existing platforms would need to be demolished, and the tracks would need to be shifted, which would create service disruptions during construction. Next slide. As we list potential pros and cons, our team focuses on the key 6 categories I mentioned earlier, which is part of our framework. For safety, does providing side platforms allow the team to increase the width of ramps to track crossings? And does it allow for wider crossings, making crossings at the track safer? Do the island platforms allow for more space to be utilized by passengers while waiting for the train, which increases passenger comfort? Is a side platform too narrow to allow for the full foundation of a canopy to cover passengers during inclement weather? Does the reconfiguration of a station require a full line or station shutdown for construction? And how long is that shutdown? Does it cost the MBTA more or less to operate and maintain an island platform versus a side station platforms? Do we have enough space to relocate the platforms, or do the concepts require impact to sensitive areas? These are the type of important questions we ask ourselves and each other as we begin to develop station alternatives. It is an iterative process with a lot of back and forth and intermediate steps required, with each step hopefully improving upon one of the 6 key categories. The goal at the end of the station concept development process is to have viable alternatives, to evaluate the alternatives, and then come back to these categories one final time for a final assessment. Now I'll turn it back over to AJ.
Thanks, Phil. So I'd like to end by re-emphasizing that the MBTA is wholeheartedly committed to public outreach and engagement. We have committed to holding public meetings every 6 months and prioritizing transparency and inclusion. For example, leading up to this meeting, we've worked to engage members of the neighborhood and ensure that you have the opportunity to have your voice heard. We've been reaching out to local community groups such as Mattapan Square Main Streets, Greater Ashmont Main Streets, and Mattapan Food and Fitness to spread awareness of the project and this public meeting. We've also posted advertisements in the Milton Times and Dorchester Reporter, run digital ads at stations, posted flyers, and distributed information on social media and via email. We'll continue to do this type of engagement throughout this program because we want your input. We're also ensuring that this project is coordinated with other related projects in the local area. We are meeting monthly with the City of Boston to coordinate our program with 2 of their initiatives, the Blue Hill Ave Transportation Action Plan and Plan Mattapan. If you'd like to learn more about these separate initiatives, the city is hosting its first public meeting on these programs 1 week from today, next Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to also thank the several representatives that we have from the city of Boston on this meeting today. Lastly, I'd like to point out that there are many ways for you to provide input on this project, and we encourage you to submit comments and feedback either by emailing our program or calling our program hotline. I again want to thank everyone for your time today, and we're going to open up the conversation to questions in just a moment.
So first, I'll turn it over to Adam with the MBTA to recognize any elected officials and offer them the opportunity to ask questions or make comments.
Sure, folks. If you're an elected official, please raise your hand. Happy to recognize you if you want to make a statement or ask a question before opening up the floor. Senator Timilty.
I thank you very much, and thank you very much for the presentation. Right off the bat, I must say that the demolition of the staircase without an immediate plan to restore the steps is not acceptable. And the fact that it has been neglected in this presentation, that phase one is well over 2 years behind schedule, and you will not engage in phase two, which is the restoration and repairs of various stations along the line, and all stations, which is wholly appropriate, I find to be unacceptable as well. This project needs to get moving. It really does. And these stations need to be restored and repaired, particularly the demolition of the steps without, again, an immediate plan to start up restoration, to me, is outrageous. And hence the reason why the town of Milton's engaged in litigation with the MBTA. So I just want to say that. And the fact that this can't be done, I just find that to be something that flies in the face of logic. The T has more than ample resources for this project, and why we can't do everything that needs to be done with the Milton station steps in the short term is, to me, again, unacceptable. And the fact that there isn't a timeline in place is also unacceptable. Thank you very much, and feel free, anybody who'd like to jump in on that.
Thank you for that comment and that question, Senator.
Thank you.
First, just want to say you're correct. We are investing a tremendous amount of resources into the project, over $100 million towards the Mattapan Line transformation has already been committed. I'll turn it over to AJ to talk about a little the FTA component and some of the concerns regarding why the Milton stairs are being demolished and then reinstalled as part of the larger transformation program. AJ, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of this program, we do intend to bring the station up to complete accessibility. However, at this time, the FTA does require, if we were to repair or replace that set of stairs, that we do bring the station up to full accessibility immediately, which would include installing an elevator, elevating the platforms, etc. So rebuilding that set of stairs would really limit us in the future in terms of having space to install an elevator and things of that nature. So that's really why we are moving forward with removing the safety hazard that exists and giving us the opportunity to go through this program to bring the station up to full accessibility. And I will just add your concerns with schedule. I hear you and I understand, but we are moving this program forward at this time. I know it was delayed for some period, but at this point we are moving it forward really as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Representative Driscoll.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at the top of the Q&A. I'm interested in hearing from members of the public that are on the call tonight to see if they have any feedback and reaction to the presentation. I echo the sentiments of Senator Timilty in terms of, I think you've given a clear answer as to what the T's plans at this point. I join him in that we really need to have a timeline in place to understand when the staircase will be replaced and reopened and usable again. And it's still, kind of a nebulous timeline as to when we can expect that. So I think we have been clear about our position as well in terms of having those two be in tandem, both demolition, but also the rebuilding of the stairs or whatever the next iteration of access point to and from Adams Street is. On a separate point, on the the refurbishment of the trolley cars, I think it might be helpful just to quickly walk through the best case scenario for members of the public and constituents on the call tonight, in terms of how that plan works. You are close to having, as you mentioned, the second refurbished car in service, very, very close. What's the ideal scenario going forward in terms of, two cars off the tracks being refurbished, that kind of thing, so people kind of understand what the outlook is there, even if the timeline is flexible.
Thank you, Rep. I'll turn it over to our team in a second to address the timeline. Yes, the second car right now is actually undergoing testing. There's a safety component to the amount of testing a car needs to, or a trolley needs to be going under before it's put back into revenue service. And so right now it is at Mattapan undergoing the last bit of testing before it's being put back into revenue service. Car number 3, as AJ, or trolley car number 3 is currently being de-leaded over at Middleborough before being taken to our Everett shops, and then eventually being able to start the process of refurbishing and getting that back up into service. And I think this is something that we want to check back in with the public, with the folks on this call, with members of the community every 6 months. This is not something that we're going to be able to complete in a year or two. We have to transport these cars from Mattapan to Middleborough to get them de-leaded, and eventually to our shops to get them get the parts and the repairs necessary. In some cases, the parts necessary to refurbish some of these trolleys are incredibly difficult to get, to procure. And so that delays some of the process. Once we receive the trolleys and we assess them, that gives us a better picture of how long or how much time we need per trolley. And that allows us to get a clearer picture on what the turnaround is. So we have the first 3, that we have a definitive idea of when we're trying to get them back. And should there be an update to that timeline, we know there's going to be another check-in with the public, another public meeting in the spring of next year, and we'll be transparent in telling folks if we need to update that timeline. AJ or Joe, if you have anything to add.
I do not have anything to add to that, Adam.
Want to go Representative Fluker-Oakley, Senator Timilty, and then we'll open it up for public comment and questions. Rep. Fluker-Oakley.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you to you and the team for hosting the meeting this evening. Very briefly, because I'm eager and anxious to hear what members of the community have to say. I just wanted to echo my colleagues in the Milton delegation about a timeline, and then also related to the stairs. I know there's been litigation, only so much you can say, but just recognizing the community's been waiting for a while, and I know would appreciate that. The other thing that I just wanted to clarify regarding your presentation is that while the trolley refurbishment is occurring, the MBTA is also simultaneously working in parallel to get the Type 9 vehicles ready for the tracks. Is that accurate? Just want to make sure that's clear and shared.
Yes, I can jump in, Adam. Yeah, absolutely. The trolley refurbishment program is operating completely independently of the transformation program. So the design work that we have talked about today is happening on a complete separate timeline than that of the trolley refurbishment. So we hope to get the trolleys refurbished and on the line as quickly as possible to provide, a more reliable and improved service for the immediate term, while we also address the long-term needs of the station by preparing the infrastructure for the Type 9 vehicles.
And that's a commitment that we've made back in 2019, before the pandemic, and that's something that we want to be held accountable to. And timeline might have slipped a little bit, but that's something that we want to continue working on. With that, I'll turn it over to Senator Timilty.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you, EAJ. Just a couple of follow-up points. And first of all, I just would like to thank Representative Driscoll and Representative Fluker-Oakley for their collaboration on this issue and so many others in their teamwork. I wholeheartedly agree with your points that you just made. And to go back to an item that we discussed a moment ago, to say that demolishing stairs is removing a public safety hazard or eliminating one, to me is just not true. To me, the safety hazard will become even more acute with a hole in the ground. And what is the case with that staircase for almost 10 years now? It's a blight on the area and a public safety hazard. And given the disaster in terms of timing and lack of productivity that phase 1 has been, we all agree that phase 2, which is the restoration and repair of each and every station on the Mattapan line, needs to commence. And the MBTA needs to work on these projects concurrently. It can be done and it should be done. And that's just following up. I thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to listening to all of our constituents tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and
Thank you.
Appreciate the advocacy from you and the rest of the delegation on not only the stairs, but the entire transformation.
Thank you, Adam.
With that, I'll turn it back over to Patrick, and we can go ahead and get started on public comment and questions. Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Adam. So to make a comment, you must just first virtually raise your hand. To do this on the computer, just press Alt-Y, those two buttons, or you click the raise hand button under the participants tab at the bottom center of your screen. If you're on a mobile device, just tap the raise hand button in the bottom center of your screen. Or if you're on your phone, just dial *9. Once you raise your hand, you'll be added to a queue with others who have raised their hands, and I'll call on folks just as a first come, first basis. When it's your turn to speak, I'll say your name or the last digits of your phone. If you've called in, I don't see anyone, but I'll let you know that I am going to unmute you. If you're on a computer or mobile device, a box will pop up in the center of your screen, and you'll need to confirm that you'd like to be unmuted before you begin speaking. If you're on the phone, an automated recording will let you know that you are unmuted, and then you may speak as soon as the recording finishes. Once you are unmuted, everyone in the meeting will be able to hear you. So before making your comment, please just state your name, and then if you have any organizational affiliation. And please limit all comments to no more than 2 minutes. We ask that you only make one comment at a time, so we can ensure everyone has a chance to speak. You may also post comments in the chat, and then we will document them, and you can send us comments via email to Charlie. So first, I did see some comments in the chat, so I'll get to those first. So first question was about the trolleys, about the presence of lead, and where was the actual presence of lead on the trolleys.
Hey, Adam, or whomever that is, can you mute the person who's speaking, or is that intent? Is that happening for translation?
It is one of the translators, but it should be in a separate audio. I'm not exactly sure how to address it, but if we could address it before we move forward, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But to the MBTA team, the question was, where might lead be on the actual trolleys that are being refurbished?
Yeah, absolutely. I can answer that. So the presence of lead paint exists on the exterior of the trolley vehicles. So we do have to go through the de-leading process to make sure that these vehicles are safe to operate on. but it should not impact riders that are currently riding the trolleys on the interior of the vehicles.
And just to follow up on AJ's point, it's not unsafe to ride any of the trolleys, even with the paint, unless lead paint is consumed or internal and ingested. It is safe to be around. Many older homes have lead paint as well, and it's more unsafe for children to consume them.
Thanks to you both. The second question that I received, is there an alternate and accessible path to the Milton station? And if so, can passengers use this while steps are being demolished?
I can answer that one as well. Yes, there are 2 accessible paths to Milton Station. One of them being via Wharf Street. You go down Wharf Street and you enter through the Milton Station parking lot and you can enter the platform. And the other would be on the opposite side of the tracks from the Neponsit Trail.
Excellent. And then the third question, gotten a few variations of this, but is the current plan to refurbish all of the trolleys and then replace them, or what will happen with the trolleys, the historic PCC cars?
We haven't officially decided or determined what will happen to the retired trolley cars. We will do so later on in this program, but at this time we don't have a determination of what we will be doing with the old retired trolley cars.
Great. And then the final chat question is, what is the cost of this project? And where is the money coming from to cover the cost?
Yeah. AJ, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sorry. So to answer the first question, the total cost of the program, we don't have an official total cost estimate at this time. That will be completed as part of the 15% design submission that will be completed by the end of 2023. At this time, though, we do have funding available to us of about $115 million. We estimate, or we are confident that that will be more than enough to get us through the design phase for the entire program. We do anticipate potentially needing more funding than that, but at this time, we don't know exactly how much we are going to need in addition to that amount.
And so,
hey, AJ, can you separate both out? Can you separate the trolley 12 points? Can you separate both numbers to make sure everyone understands it?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So the trolley refurbishment program is funded to $12.2 million. And the Mattapan Transformation Program, so the stations, the transition of the line from the trolleys to the Type 9 vehicles, is funded to $114.5 million.
And the other piece is that already in the SIP? Is the 114 done? Is real? There's not a chance that it's not coming back. Yes,
we have that money available to us as we currently have that money available to us. Yes, it is in the CIP, and we are able to use that money for this project.
Great. We have some folks who have their hands raised to ask questions. So I'll ask Linda to speak right now. I'll unmute you. I know you have a question.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I use the Milton, I live in Lower Mills in Dorchester. I use the Milton trolley stop, and it is not safe to walk through those parking lots. It's ridiculous. It's dark. You're alone at night coming home. You know, if you're not going to fix the steps, which is an outrage in itself, you have to mitigate. It's walking through a parking lot and they don't plow it correctly. I have slipped. Or the pathway that's in Milton, it is unshoveled and people are slipping and sliding across it. So, and it's unlit. As a woman, it's an outrage. It is unsafe. So you're saying you're doing this all for safety, but you're not taking into consideration the safety of the people who need to use that stop as I do. It is truly unsafe. It's shameful. Shame on you for saying that it's safe to use. Have you ever used it late at night? That's all I have to say. I think you need to address the safety of the current situation.
Thank you for that comment. In terms of the parking lot not being adequately shoveled or plowed, that's something we can take back to our operations folks and make sure that's addressed moving forward. And in terms of the lighting of the parking lot, that's definitely something we're looking at as part of this program. I understand that these are important issues that you're bringing up, and some of them seem like maybe quick and easy fixes. We are looking at this holistically, and it's a massive program, but we are looking to identify early action items that we can implement sooner rather than later, ahead of the major construction for this program. And we can absolutely take the lighting in the Milton parking lot as an opportunity to implement as an early action item. We can evaluate that. Thank you for your feedback.
All right, next we have James Green. James, I'll unmute you right now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for you guys going over the current situation with the Milton stop, as well as your plans on what you could do to fix it. So I just want to say this, and I hope this is the right platform to say it on. At the Mattapan station itself, because I'm with Linda, I rely on the Mattapan trolley system to go back and forth to work. Sometimes in the morning, what I see, there used to be a starter at that station. There's no starter there now. So as you're coming off the trolley, you got certain buses that you need to connect to get to work, and they're just taking like right off. So I'm just thinking that if there could be a starter back at that Mattapan station, just so there could be like smooth transitioning and smooth transfers when you have to go from trolley, say, to bus. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that feedback as well. It's really critical that we hear items of this nature from the people who are using this station every day. I think this is definitely something, again, that we can go back and talk with our operations folks. I'm not sure when there was, and if there no longer is, when the decision was made to remove that. But we can definitely go back to our operations folks and get some more information on that.
Thanks, AJ. Next up is Barbara. Barbara, I'll unmute you right now.
Hi, I was on the committee for the original repairs renovation being done at Mattapan Square Station. And some of those, the plans were never complete. The location was supposed to be an area where people could either get out the bad weather or go in and get bus information, those cards that would tell you what buses they could connect to from Mattapan Square. That doesn't happen. Just like the young man just said about the starter, there used to be a starter out there to actually help give that type of information, but obviously that doesn't exist. The other thing is that when the station was in the renovation stage, there were going to be restrooms available to the public, and those are not there. And since then, the plan was to bring in the, what do you call them? The restrooms like they have downtown Boston that you go in, use it, and then it cleans itself. That was supposed to have been added to the back of the building. That's never been done. And again, just like the other comments about the stairway at Adams Street, it just seems like the MBTA has a continuous problem of stairways. We did have a problem like that, and this was years ago at Morton Street. Those stairs had to be replaced. The one at JFK has a big problem. So I think, you know, at some point, Adams Street needs to be addressed and fixed, just like the rest of these things have. And hopefully, we'll get some of the things that this community deserves that were in the original plans. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback, Barbara. And I think you highlight a very good point, Barbara, by mentioning that there needs to be work all across this line. And that is not something that we'll shy away from saying. This is a community that deserves the investment that it's receiving. It's long overdue for the investment that it's receiving. And what we want to stay away from is prioritizing one over another. We want to give every station all across the entirety of the Mattapan line the attention and the investment it deserves. And I think going through with this process, the Mattapan transformation process, this program will look at every single station, we'll look to improve every single station, and hopefully working with this community, we can come back at 15% design and moving forward, engaging in a consistent dialogue about what we want to see at some of these stations. And I think doing it holistically is the approach where we can lift every station up instead of doing it through a piecemeal process. So I really appreciate your comment, Barbara.
All right, next question is from Susan. Susan, I will unmute you right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi. So I'm Susan Coffey. I actually grew up in Milton, and all of this T trolley is very near and dear to me since being a kid, teenager, taking the trolley into Ashmont. It just really means a lot to me. And then I lived out of state, and now I live back here, and I actually live in one of the Walter Baker buildings here. And so I am going to echo what Representative Bill Driscoll and Walter Timothy said about the stairs, because when I moved back, I thought, wow, what happened here? So I guess I'm trying to get a handle too, since I live right next to the trolley, and I love having the trolleys. But as far as the stair goes, that really has to be addressed. And the building that I live in, again, is part of the Walter Baker Chocolate, all the different buildings. So people cut. So there's actually no entrance from my side. I live in Milton, but right on the river, so kind of between Dorchester and Milton, there's actually no access to get. There is access, but you have to cut through the parking lot, which the woman mentioned earlier, that is pitch black. And I do take the trolley. I work at Mass Pioneer. I take the trolley and the train into Boston. And so I guess when I say near and dear to me, living other places and then coming back to this area from a public relations standpoint, I guess I don't understand, with all the traffic, with all the cars, how the T, I guess, can really promote itself. And this is the first step, and I'm happy to hear that they're going to fix these stations up, because you know, when I wait for the trolley or I'm walking my dogs, I see litter and everything, you know, just debris, and I think, ah, it looks terrible. It looks really terrible. And maybe something more like Europe, where it's just beautiful, and people will want to get on the train and will want to get on the trolley rather than getting in their cars. It just, I know I just have a lot to say. I guess I just have a lot of feeling about the whole transit system. And I'm glad that you're making this move. I hope it works out. but I hope more people will get out of their cars and into the train system. But when you see the stairs dilapidated and debris all over the tracks, you know, people don't want to then get on the train. They're like, ugh, I don't want to get on that. I do, because I grew up on it. So anyway, I guess I don't really have, I guess I'm kind of all over the place a little bit, but I just have so many things to say about it. And I'd like to get more involved in trying to help make the MBTA, because Boston isn't a train city, and make it a train city the way that it used to be. So, but I do agree the stairs really is a hazard, even from a nursing perspective. And again, there is people cross over at night, myself included. I live the building right next to it, so it's not that scary for me, but there's really no access. You have to cross in front of the, what do you call it? The warehouse there, you know, the storage place. And that's not really an entrance. But on the other hand, thank you for finally doing something about making the trolley better and more accessible, and maybe more people will start using it and get out of their cars.
Thank you, Susan. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Susan, but I think you have a lot to say because you care so much about the trolley. And if that's true, I think a lot of people on this call, simply by having 100 people on this call, or close to 100 people on this call on a Tuesday night, taking the time, a lot of people care about what happens on the trolley, and we're really appreciative of the community and the feedback that we've received thus far. And Susan, we want to reach out and offer you also an opportunity to engage with us as we continue on with this project. Because I mean, we have a list of 87 people, 100 people on this call who have taken the time, and we want to hear your concerns, not only in this forum, but as we continue to make decisions going forward. This is not the only conversation that we're having on this project. We have regular conversations. We're out in the community. We're not doing just these Zoom calls. We're engaging with folks on the ground, and we really want to hear from you. And so we'll reach out because we want to stay engaged, and I think that's a really good relationship. This is not something that we're going to do in the span of a year or 2 years. We're talking about a process that's going to take many years. And so we want to stay engaged with folks in the short term and in the long term, and offer opportunities to engage. So thank you, Susan, for caring. And we'll look towards specifically at the Milton station if there's any short-term remedies that we can do. Patrick, back to you.
If I could just jump in, I got a couple of questions in my chat, so I just want to bring those up now, if that's okay. The first question, will these refurbished trolleys be able to run when there is snow? So to answer that question, the new propulsion equipment will certainly improve the operation of the trolleys, specifically in the snow. But we won't know specific performance until they are tested in service. And so this is, one of the key reasons that we are moving forward with this program, is to increase reliability of this line, which moving over to the Type 9 vehicles will do. And I can give it back to you, Patrick.
Thanks, AJ. I see Robbie has his hand up, so I'll call on him next. Robbie, I'll unmute you.
Hi, yes. Kind of touch back on what's been said a little bit. With the stairs not being fixed yet, as well as multiple comments about the parking lot not really feeling as it's a safe means of access or really dedicated to accessing the train. Is there any thought to possibly relocate the Milton station so that it can serve the means of the people and also achieve the goals of accessibility that you guys are trying to achieve currently and in the future?
Thank you for that question. At this time, we have not evaluated relocating the station. However, we are evaluating all options to make the station fully accessible, including a connection from the street. We don't have the definitive layout of the station, how we're going to achieve that, but we do fully intend to do so. But at this time, the station will remain in its existing footprint.
Yeah, we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to make this station fully accessible in its location where it currently is. That just involves designing the station and constructing it like we've set out to do.
Thanks to you both. We've had some questions in the chat, so I'll try to get to those. There have been a number of them, so I apologize. But one question is, will the trolley rails need to be relayed for a new gauge?
Sorry, Patrick, can you repeat that?
Sorry, yes. So the question is, will the trolley rails need to be relayed for a new gauge?
I would ask potentially someone from the design team to.
Yep, this is Phil Santos.
Thanks,
No, we
Phil.
will not have to lay new rails. The gauge will be the same for the Type 9s and the existing PCCs. So no change there.
Great. And then the next question in the chat is, will the improved platforms be completed within the next 2 years?
Our intent is to have a definitive schedule for the program by the end of the 15% design program, which would be the end of 2023. We are evaluating options to expedite certain items as part of this program. I will say, I think within the next 2 years is probably unlikely, at least for all of the stations on the line. But we are looking at every option to expedite this.
Great. Thanks, AJ. Another question in the chat is that given that the new Type 9 trolleys use a 14-inch platform, while the PCC trolleys seem to platform less than 6 inches, so the doors will open, do you have a changeover plan so there is no long outage as the new trolleys are brought in?
I'll take that.
Go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, if that's okay with you, AJ, I can take that
Yep.
one. So this relates to one of the key categories that we had on screen earlier, talking about constructability. So it's one of the elements we're evaluating as we put together proposals for each station. Now, we know that each station needs fully accessible 14-inch platforms in its end condition. And the challenge is going to be doing that between the PCCs and Type 9. So we're working. The short answer is yes, we'll have something. We don't have something right now, but we're working on that transition. The Green Line has done similar transitions and they've incorporated an intermediate step. We're looking at that, and we're looking at unique ways to provide a full changeover to 14 inches. So we're still evaluating that at this time, but it is part of the process and it is something we are fully engaged with.
Great. Thanks, Phil. Another question is, there is no charge for the outbound trolley, but there is a cost inbound from Mattapan to Ashmont. Are there plans to increase costs to cover the project costs?
So there is no direct correlation between our fare collection and the cost of the project. We do not link the two at all. Our fare policy is set separately from any project costs. So there will be no changes to the fare structure, and the existing fare structures will continue to be the same.
Great. I think that does. Oh, we have one other question. One is, what about installing a station building for the Mattapan station? I think it would be helpful for people who are waiting for their bus or trolley, especially during the winter, such as renovating the current station with a building shelter similar to the Ashmont station.
So specifically, this sounds like they're asking for a head house. AJ, do you want to take this one?
So at this time, there are a lot of operational needs for this area. With the transition to the Type 9 vehicles, there will be a new maintenance facility in this area. We're trying to increase bus headways at this area as well. So we have not considered this at this point in time, but it is definitely something that we can evaluate. We are still at the point in the project that we can take this feedback and evaluate it. So I think we can definitely do so for this item.
Thanks, AJ. Next comment, many of the stations straddle the boundary between Milton and Boston, even though some are more welcoming to one side or other. Can you speak a little bit about the interests and the interest of stations connecting access to both sides of the river?
So the intent with this project is to make the stations as accessible as we possibly can, remaining in the footprint of our the real estate that we own. There's definitely some infrastructure that is not MBTA owned that could potentially support this. But as part of this project, we're doing everything we can to make each station as accessible as it possibly can. I will say this is absolutely feedback that we welcome and encourage, and we'll look to incorporate this into the project.
Great, thank you. Next comment is Central Ave crossing is extremely busy with both pedestrian and auto traffic. Are there any plans for any safety features at the Central Avenue crossing?
So this is actually something that we have looked at as a potential early action item for the project. So we have been coordinating with the city to see how we can improve safety at this crossing. We definitely agree that it's something that it needs to be looked at and are in the process of doing so.
Hey, AJ, if I could just add to that,
Yeah.
The T has worked with the city in the past, and we have made some safety improvements with illuminated signs at this location. So we've already made those improvements, and it is something that we're gonna look into a little further as part of this project. We're gonna have the team evaluate for further improvements.
Great, thank you. There's a question about removing a damaged trolley at Mattapan Station. I'm not sure, AJ, if you know anything about that.
I do not. I believe I know. I believe I know what the question is referring to. I don't believe we have any plans to relocate it at this time. It's something that we can go back to the operations folks with and see if it's possible.
Great. Next question is, there's a building owned by DCR. Why don't we ask to incorporate this into this project? This building is next to the entry to the Neponsit Greenway at Mattapan Station.
Yep. So we are currently in the process of engaging DCR to figure out what their plans are for that building. As I've said during the presentations, we are communicating with the city of Boston and DCR as well to make sure that all the work that we're doing is in coordination with what they're doing. But at this time, we can't really determine what DCR will do with this building. But we do see it as an option, and we are looking to engage them as soon as possible. We put in a request to meet with them regarding this specific facility.
Great. And Another question that I just got, is there any plans on adding trolleys that occupy more people to allow transportation wait times to decline?
That's a good question. AJ, yeah, you can go ahead and take this one.
I was just going to say that, we're not going to be adding new trolleys. We are refurbishing the existing ones, but we're not acquiring any new trolleys. But the Type 9 vehicles will more than double the capacity of the existing PCC trolley cars. So that is, definitely a major goal of this program is to increase, increase the capacity of the line itself, which the Type 9s will do drastically.
Great. And then the final question that I have in the chat is, will there be an online survey for the Mattapan line for rider improvements, such as capital transformation project, instead of having people to email or call, similar to other subway lines for feedback?
I think this is definitely something that we can do at this time, and we don't have the infrastructure set up at this time, but I think it's definitely something that we can do. Capital Transformation will be taking this project on after the 15% design level, so we can definitely coordinate with them and see what they've done on other efforts and move forward with that.
Great. And then I apologize, there is one other question. It's about ridership data. Is there ridership data on the Mattapan trolley? Specifically, who uses each stop, the number of people at each stop, at various times of the day, and then demographics to better understand the needs of users.
So we do have some ridership data for this line. It is limited in comparison to some of our other lines, being that there's no tap-in system on the trolleys. So we have on various occasions had MBTA employees, out on the line counting the number of individuals that get on a certain trolley at each time. So like I said, we do have some ridership data, but it's limited in comparison to some of the other lines in the MBTA.
Great. Thank you, AJ. That concludes the questions that I have, and I don't see any further hands raised for any further questions. I'll turn it over to you, AJ, to close, but if folks have other questions that they want answered or just comments or feedback that they'd like us to consider, you could certainly send us an email at trolley@mbta.com, and we'll respond and address them and ensure we incorporate them into our thought process. So AJ, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for attending this meeting tonight. The feedback that you have given us tonight is extremely helpful for the program. So I just want to say thank you for everyone who spoke and asked questions. It's great dialogue for the program. So thank you all, and that is it. That's all I have for tonight. I did just get one last question. Where will the presentation be posted? It will be posted on the project website. I believe it is mbta.com/Mattapan Transformation. Maybe we can just confirm that through the presentation here, Patrick. And yes, I can send out the link in the chat. One moment.
Yes, AJ, it's mbta.com/.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, perfect.
And I'm sending that into the chat right now. All right. Thank you everybody for attending today. Greatly appreciate it.
Folks. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.